What are you doing exactly?
Well, next week is Thanksgiving, Chester, but I can't afford to fly home because you don't pay me enough.
Well,
Was Ms. Heard paid for her services in Aquaman 1?
Yes.
Was Ms. Heard paid for her services in Aquaman 2?
Yes.
Was her compensation for Aquaman 2 affected in any way by anything said by Johnny Depp?
No.
Was her compensation for Aquaman 2 affected by anything said by Adam Waldman?
No.
Oh, lies.
To be fair, I think that they can always say that her pay wasn't affected by anything her ex-husband did, and for that to make sense. However, they've also pushed back the release date of Aquaman 2 to December of next year, and because of things like that, people have been speculating that it could be due to Amber's involvement. And this also means that they didn't do Comic-Con this year, and I think we all know why.
that's a rally of people who want me fired, Lyle.
Awkward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, during the big trial of the year, we learned that Amber Heard's salary for the first film was $1 million, and for the second film, she renegotiated to $2 million, and Jason Momoa apparently renegotiated to $15 million, and for the first movie, he was apparently paid $3 to $4 million, which is 3 or 4 times as much what Amber Heard got paid. And for that, I just have one question.
What's up, man?
And in the trial, they had a few people come in to testify, and they were making all these different excuses for this gigantic wage disparity. And I had a lot of problems with it, but I was really surprised at how people managed to justify it to themselves or just shrug it off. Despite all these big social movements about how they're not gonna put up with this type of stuff anymore, apparently no one had anything to say about this, and it's very strange to me.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
In Hollywood, silence is the default. You play no card before it's time.
Time's up. Equality matters because you never stop fighting for what's right. You don't pick one thing that's right and fight for that, or focus on what's wrong here and not these. The day that you throw your hands up and you're just content to accept injustice, you're dead. We all are.
Anyway, I've decided to make a little petition about this, and I know that they don't usually listen to some of the petitions that are out there, and I'm glad that they don't listen to some of the petitions that are out there, but it's just more for the gesture of that somebody noticed this, and what do you have to say for yourselves kind of thing.
Anyway, I got to eat my Thanksgiving dinner right here, right now, ow, ow, ow. And my main man, Rudy, he will record it, and my family can watch it next week while I'm stuck up in this hellhole.
James is texting to Amber on August 25, 2018, "You rated really high with the audience, exclamation mark, exclamation mark."
Ooh, it's gonna be hot with 2 T's, baby.
Well.
"You rated really high with the audience, exclamation mark, exclamation mark." Do you see that?
Yes.
Looks like you've got some splaining to do.
This is August 25, 2018. What's going on August 25, 2018 that would cause the director to send a text message to Amber saying...
That'd be a test screening. So during our post-production of movie, we test the movie with an audience, and the audience tells us what they liked and what they didn't like. And so that's what he's referring to there.
And they really liked Amber Heard, correct?
Yes, she did. She tested well.
It hit $1 billion, is that correct?
Yeah.
Do not F with me.
Huh?
Do not F with me.
I'm not what? Do not what?
I needs money.
Yeah.
I needs money to keep the big girls happy, you know what I'm saying?
What does it cost to keep a big girl happy?
It costs plenty of money.
Is that right? Well, I guess so.
Big girls need love, too. I expect you to understand that, David. I'd expect you to understand that most of all.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't really. Yeah.
You should.
Yeah.
You really should. And after everything I have done for you, the least you can do is return the favor, Faye.
You haven't really done much for me, honestly.
I've done some things for you.
Yeah, okay.
Now, Aquaman was the highest grossing DC film ever for Warner Brothers, was it not?
Yes, it was.
It hit $1 billion, is that correct?
Yeah.
When these things are exposed, it's criminal how unfair the pay gap is between men and women.
And I found it particularly surprising for the Aquaman movie because in all the promotional material and the interviews that they did, they were kind of like selling it on this gender equality kind of angle. So it's just weird that behind the scenes they don't want to actually do it.
And I was surprised by Mr. Hamada under oath basically saying that there was this discussion of chemistry.
What?
Oh, no, she did not.
I'm surprised to hear Mr. Hamada say that they talked about chemistry. That would normally be behind closed doors because it can't help your relationship with the actor.
It's all games out here in La La Land,
That's
but...
right.
You know something, mister? One of these days, I'm gonna have to teach you a lesson it seems you never learned.
Now, Chris, you can't come out here and start threatening people like this.
Until that day, I'm gonna be right here, making your life a living hell. I'm gonna be watching you, Dave. From my little hole down here, I'll be watching you. And you know what? One day I might just snap. I hope I don't snap, Dave. I hope I don't snap. I see you. I see you.
Okay.
That was quite a bit of candor from someone at his level.
What, if any, issues did you have with Amber Heard in Aquaman 2?
My understanding is actually the production went very smoothly.
Alright, so to recap, what happened is that in the first movie where Jason and Amber were co-leads, that movie did very well in the box office, made over $1 billion worldwide. Both of their performances were well received, but somehow in the second film, Amber Heard's role was reported to be only 20 minutes of screen time, maybe. And he also made 7 times as much as what Amber Heard got paid for the second installment. Now, because of this, I have to question, are we 100% certain that her ex-husband's shenanigans had nothing to do with this now gigantic wage disparity? And I think that they possibly said this whole thing about the chemistry being off to provide an out, based on the smear campaign, because you can't fire someone based on a smear campaign because I think that could be illegal or something, so they have to come up with a different excuse for it. So I think that could be what's happening there. And they've already said that they're not going to bow to fan pressure to fire her just because people really, really want her to be fired, but I just still think it's kind of wrong to use that the smear campaign or whatever as a way to save money and pay her that much less than him. And even for the first movie where there was no smear campaign, what was the excuse to pay Jason Momoa 3 or 4 times as much as what she got paid?
Don't. Right now, you and all your friends disgust me.
Do you understand that Ms. Arnold compares Ms. Heard's career trajectory with that of other actors, including Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, Zendaya, Ana de Armas, and Chris Pine?
I heard that.
And what's your opinion of those actors as comparables for Ms. Heard?
Even Ms. Heard's agent, Jessica Kay, said that 4 of those actors weren't.
You dirty little liar.
They are not comparable.
I'll get you, bitch!
Jason Momoa was Aquaman.
Do you realize the impact you're going to have on girls?
Yeah, you know, I took this role because, you know, on the phone before I ever read the script, and it's very secretive, these things, you know.
You can't say much,
Yeah, and you can't, and you also don't know a lot when you're first going into it. And I said, I am not interested. I'm not interested. And then, you know, Zack Snyder explained to me a little bit of who this character was, and he said, she's a warrior queen. This is no damsel. This is no, you know, typical. You're the female counterpart to him. He said, just read a comic. You know, you're a warrior queen. I went, sword and a crown. Okay,
That's impressive.
Got my number. But then I looked at the comic book, and in the first scene, you know, she like they both her and Aquaman. Both Mira and Aquaman save a town, and the townsfolk are running around saying, like, you know, who is this? Who are you? Are you Aqua Woman? And she's like, whoa. I'm not Aqua Woman. I have my own name. It's Mira.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, I'll take it.
You swore!
I just thought you were doing so well.
Shocked! Shocked!
So even in the comic books, it's a thing that she doesn't go by a stupid superhero name. She just uses her own name. And this guy tried to twist it to try to suggest that her character is less important because of the fact that she doesn't use a stupid superhero name. And before Amber Heard took the job, she was kind of made this promise that this character wasn't going to be like a typical female superhero character. And in the film itself, you can see that they fight their fights together. Both Mira and Arthur are doing the fight scenes together. They help each other out. They save each other. So it's just awful that this guy tried to suggest that she's not as important as him.
Jason Momoa was Aquaman.
And I also wanted to touch on this point of who was Charlie in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and who got paid more? Who was Alice in Alice in Wonderland and who got paid more? And when you make that point, suddenly people are like, well, look at the posters, that should make sense of things. And then when I say, well, look at the Aquaman posters, how do you then explain why Jason Momoa got paid like triple or quadruple what she got paid? It doesn't make any sense, but whatever. Even if we look back at the old superhero movies, with Superman, who played Superman and who got paid the most? And I'll tell you, it wasn't Superman. So for this person to say, oh, because he was Aquaman, that should mean all this stuff, like, it really doesn't mean anything if you actually look into the industry and the history of it. It doesn't mean that much that he was Aquaman.
When I was a kid, my friends and I went to the movies just for fun. But then we saw Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove. Started us thinking about the madness of nuclear destruction. Stanley Kramer's The Defiant once taught us about race relations. And we began to realize that films could deal with social issues. Now, when you look at films like Platoon and Philadelphia, Lorenzo's Oil, you realize the power of film to present painful but important issues to the public.
Not to mention the pay gap, the deep disparity between wages between men and women doing the same jobs, and the lifespan that we have. These are institutions that have been needed to be challenged, overturned. Now is the time where we're starting to realize the damage done by these antiquated institutions and outdated norms of protecting the status quo that hurts women and underserves women and underrepresents us in a major way.
Something that really bothered me about the Aquaman movie was how they never explained to you what the word Aquaman means or where it came from. And what happened was, like, in the beginning of the movie, Aquaman kind of comes to this like submarine type thing, and he saves all these people. And before he does that, like, people kind of know who he is. That they say it's the Aquaman. I'm like, how do you know who he is? How does an Aquaman type person have notoriety like on the land? I didn't understand it. They never explained it. They also had this news person say that it's the Aquaman, and he kind of knows about the Atlantic people, and they don't explain why. It's just something that he kind of knows. It just seemed like really lazy writing or something. I didn't like it at all. And I've seen some other superhero movies, and they usually do try to explain stuff like that to you. They have tried to explain why this person kind of fits into that particular world. Like with Spider-Man, he's supposed to be a more relatable type of figure, and I've seen movies where he makes his own costume, and there's one movie where he made a costume and he did this wrestler type thing, and it's like a wrestler type costume, so that's why he made sense in that world. And then I think with Superman, they usually explain the reason why he's Superman is because he works at the newspaper, so he has someone on the inside himself who can make sure that he has a nice, cool name that he approves of, and that's why it's Superman, or something like that, I don't know. And then with Iron Man and Batman, they're both incredibly wealthy, and they make sure that they have very obvious messaging so that people know who they are, and they picked out their own names and their costumes, so it's very clear what they're supposed to be. Anyway, my point is that they do attempt to make sense of the superhero in the universe, but then with Aquaman, it was really weird because his costume consists of a pair of jeans and nothing else, so it's not really clear what he's supposed to be. And he's someone that kind of emerged from the water, and it's like the ocean, so it's like weird that he would end up with the name Aquaman of all things, because that's not how humans typically name things that are coming from like the ocean, or something, a human figure from places like that. Like I think if it were real life, he would end up with a goofier name. 'Cause like if you think about Bigfoot or like mermaids, like it's a weird name, or like the Loch Ness monster, like they could call him like the Hotness monster or something. I don't know, it's weird that he ended up with the name Aquaman. Like it's too simple and non-goofy. I don't think it really makes sense if he wasn't responsible for directing humans to that choice. Like I don't think humans would give him such a nice non-stupid name, you know what I mean? And the only issue is that they just never try to explain it to you. They just said, oh, it is what it is, and just move on, and I didn't like that. And I think it would be good if they do try to explain it. I don't know if they'll do it in the second movie or a movie after that, where they give it a proper reason for why he ended up with that name, because you can. And also, I'm also thinking that to call him Aquaman, isn't it like a bit rude, because he's kind of called that, and it's based on his species. Like it's kind of like referring to a person and saying to them human, or like the Elephant Man. Like that was kind of rude. Like it would be rude to just be calling him Aquaman all the time. And he's not different from the other people in his like the Atlantic people. They're all the same. He's not special compared to them, because they have the same powers of like moving through water like he does. So what is distinctive about him for him to be like Aquaman and like he's so special? It doesn't really make sense to me. So I don't think it has much value, the fact that he's Aquaman. I don't think it's like he's a superhero and everyone else isn't, because he's like, wouldn't he be normal in relation to the Atlantic people? The only thing that would set him apart from the rest of the Atlantic people is that he is the king, but it wouldn't set him that far apart from Mira, because she's also royalty, so I don't think it would make that much of a difference between the two of them. And they seem to have kind of equal power when you see their fights, and she has the ability to move water. I think that it's kind of cool that she doesn't go by a stupid superhero name, because because the only way that it would make sense to me that people call him Aquaman is like, maybe it's kind of specious to like call him that, and it's kind of rude, like the Elephant Man. It is a kind of rude thing to say to someone. And again, I'm still finding it bizarre that the humans landed on the name Aquaman to describe Arthur, because how do they believe he has those abilities, and why is it like saying like just Aqua? Like, how do they know that he wasn't like bitten by a radioactive dolphin or something like that? Like, why did he end up with kind of like a normal sounding name? Like, it's just Aqua. Like, I don't understand how they ended up on that. And because the news person had knowledge of the Atlantean people, so why is there a need to like separate him and like say, oh, he's Aquaman? Why don't you call him he's at something to do with Atlantis or something? Like, why Aquaman? It's very odd, and they should work on explaining that a bit better in the coming movies.
Chris Pine was Captain Kirk. Gal Gadot was Wonder Woman.
And basically, I just wanted to explain to you why I do think that the word Aquaman is insignificant in the universe that they presented. And I don't like how this person is using it as an excuse to justify paying Amber Heard less and try to say her character is less because of this word Aquaman. It would be like for Gossip Girl if Penn was paid more than Blake, and then saying that, oh, well, Penn was Gossip Girl. Like, it just wouldn't fly. I just don't think it's fair that she makes millions less than the other guy based on their name. I think we should all take a second and refocus on the important aspects of what makes a superhero.
He talked a lot about the costumes, which are hard to ignore, and he said they were tricky, but he made his pretty easy to get in and out of. Yours, we heard, was so hard to sit down that they had to accommodate you not only with a book bag, but with something else so that you could get off your feet.
Well, yeah, for the first 6 months, I couldn't, because all of these are works in progress. We're doing all this stuff for the first time, and so it's a real feat of engineering. So for the first 6 months, I couldn't sit down.
That would be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, in our really short work days of like 16, 17
Yeah,
hours.
that's a lot.
So I had, but I can lean. And so they built me a leaning board for my breaks. I just would lean against the leaning board.
I think the point is that she does put on the ridiculous outfit and that she does train for the fight scenes, and that's all she needs to do to qualify as being a superhero. She does have superpowers. She can move water, things like that. So yeah, that should be enough for her to be a superhero. Like, you don't need the name on top of it. I don't think Arthur needs the name. Like Bruce, what's his name? In the Batman movies, like, you don't need to be called Batman all the time. Like, we get it. We know what he's supposed to be. You don't need the name constantly. It's just a name.
Zendaya has been working on Disney Channel since she was 13. She's in all the Spider-Man movies. She goes by one name.
Yeah, and Amber Heard is known for having the most scientifically perfect face. I think, like, for a lot of these celebrities, like, beauty is a pretty important factor as to why they're famous. And if she's known for having the most scientifically beautiful face, that would be a pretty big deal, I would think. And just in general, all these celebrities are mainly known for beauty, including Zendaya. She is mainly known for beauty, fashion, stuff like that, way more than her Disney Channel show or anything like that. And I think with Jason Momoa, that was his thing as well, was the beauty. So in general, I'm like really sick and tired of people like questioning why Amber Heard got her role in Aquaman, and did Johnny Depp need to help her to get her role in Aquaman? Like, what would Johnny Depp even do? Like, just tell them to look at her? Like, what exactly, why would he need to put in a good word for her? It's ridiculous. Like, it really shouldn't be like this gigantic mystery of like people can't figure out why the person who has the most perfect, scientifically perfect face was hired to be the princess in this superhero movie. Like, it really shouldn't be that difficult to understand.
They're both strong. And
really good looking. I mean, really.
Ana de Armas, when she was in a movie that they call, her breakout, it was as a nude poster. She's been an ensemble piece, Knives Out. These are not comparables.
And I think he has a point here, because Knives Out was an ensemble piece, and that means there's a lot of different actors. If you look at the posters, and then if you compare it to the Aquaman poster, where it's pretty clear that Jason Momoa and Amber Heard are co-leads, I really do get his point. It isn't comparable.
Miss Arnold stuck to Jason Momoa, who's the most non-comparable.
We're kind of like the same, except for different genders.
Because of his history and his career. But she didn't give us the advantage of telling us what his contracts were, what he renegotiated to, what he earned. She didn't give us any of those building blocks. She just she set him up as a comparable, and then said what Miss Heard should earn, but she never gave us the salary of Jason Momoa or the other comparables. And she built like this house of cards on nothing. She showed us with her words, the beautiful clothing that the emperor was wearing, but we could see, if you know the business,
Objection, Your Honor.
that he wasn't.
Beyond the scope.
don't fuck with me, fellas!
I've cracked bigger nuts than you, bitch.
He's an intern? Word to your mother!
She showed us with her words, the beautiful clothing that the emperor was wearing, but we could see, if you know the business.
Hollywood is always seen as this beacon of progression and liberalism and change. In reality, it's quite different.
See, we do know the business, we understand how the industry works, but we also have learned in the past few years that the system has been broken for a very, very long time. Like, where has he been this whole time? Like, does he not know? Where has he been?
Are you aware that Ms. Arnold compares Ms. Heard to Mr. Momoa as an actor with equivalent franchise experience, who was able to renegotiate his salary for significant increases in bonus?
Yes.
What's your response to that opinion?
Again, he didn't have comparable franchise experience to Miss Heard.
All right, darling. You want a tango? Let's tango.
There's nothing wrong with a couple of civilians playing a friendly game of Jenga. You win?
Jenga? It's my middle name.
Let's play it.
He was Conan the Barbarian.
I mean, I have to laugh.
Oh my goodness, can you believe that Jason Momoa was Conan the Barbarian? I mean, that is so impressive that he was Conan the Barbarian.
I was 20.
I don't know why he would bring up Conan the Barbarian. I mean, it is sort of a big budget movie. It had like a $90 million budget, but it was a box office flop. They didn't even break even. So even with the Jason Momoa alleged star power, he was not able to like make the movie at least break even. So yeah, I don't know why he thinks that that example would be helpful in this case. And I also didn't really know who Jason Momoa was until the trial. So if anyone knows, what is he really famous for? Because when I looked him up, it said that he was in Baywatch in 2001. I don't know who was alive in 2001. Were the Aquaman viewers people who watched Baywatch? And he was also in Game of Thrones for like 5 minutes, and I just feel like that can't be it. So what is the thing that he's really famous for? Is it, like, I think that he's more famous for his looks and that he's just known for being like a really pretty person? And for the Aquaman movie, it turned out to be a surprise hit overseas. And when you look at the posters, I personally don't think that either Jason or Amber, like, were that famous at that point where someone could recognize who they were based off of the posters and then say that they're going to see the movie Aquaman specifically for either one of them. I think that this was the breakout role for both of them. And it became this kind of really annoying thing in the trial because they would say that the movie Aquaman made a lot of money. It was the best performing DC film or whatever. And then they said that the reason why is because people would go to see it for Jason Momoa. And it's like, how do they know that that's the reason why, especially for the international audiences? Because if you look at the posters, I don't think you would say that it's necessarily that they're going for either one of them. I think the movie is appealing in its own way because it's the first Aquaman kind of film. So that's sort of interesting. It's nice to see something new. And also the underwater theme is appealing to a lot of people. So I don't feel comfortable saying that the reason for the movie's success is like Jason Momoa. And then on the flip side, if the movie ends up doing badly, like for the second one, because people say they want to boycott the movie called Aquaman, because of Amber Heard's involvement. Like, if they're saying that Amber Heard is not a very important character, why would people be willing to boycott an entire movie called Aquaman based on her involvement? And it's just annoying because if the movie does well, they attribute the success to Jason Momoa. And then if the movie does badly, like, who do you think that they're going to blame?
Oh, it's my fault. Everything in the whole world's my fault.
And it's a tough position because these people on Johnny Depp's side of things are saying they want to boycott the movie based on Amber. And then for me, I just like, I don't like Jason Momoa. I don't like his, I have a really sour taste for the betrayal. Like, I don't understand why he would like both of their posts. What is he trying to say? I think the guy's a chump. I just have to tell you, I don't like that guy. Based on some of these middle of the road kind of things that he's been doing.
You a bitch. You know why you a bitch? Cause I said so. You just a bitchy bitch. You a bitch McBitcherson. You a bitch McBitch. I go to McDonald's and get a McBitch because you a bitch. Bitch.
And there's been a lot of people saying that they're willing to boycott the movie called Aquaman based on Amber Heard. And someone said that they love Jason Momoa, but I'm not going to watch Aquaman 2 with AH in it. Sorry, Warner Brother Pictures, but I'm disappointed in your horrible decision. And so I just don't think that these people know what love is. So I'm just not convinced in his star power, his supposed star power based on things like this, where people are so easily able to decide that they're not going to see the movie because someone else is in it. Like, if you truly loved him, you would see the movie regardless. I mean, that's what love would mean, I think, in that type of situation. And we know that Jason was able to renegotiate for Aquaman 2 and triple his salary from the first one. And I have a really important question here in that, based on the negative things that have been said about Amber Heard and how people are saying that they're willing to boycott a movie called Aquaman 2 based on her involvement. Why does he not suffer any consequences from that? And if you can pay Amber Heard $2 million or $1 million, whatever, if you can justify that in a way, why don't you say the same thing to him? Why don't you tell him that he's like literally a puppet and that he should like take his $2 million and shut up? Why do you freely give some of these guys like $10 million extra for no reason? How is it justified when there's all this negative talk about people willing to boycott the second Aquaman movie? How does that make sense to you?
Oh! Jenga! Suck it, kettle smell.
He played Aquaman in a movie that Amber Heard was not in. He played Aquaman, not a supporting character like Mira.
What the hell did you just say?
The movie was built around the character of Arthur and the character of Orm, Arthur being Jason Momoa and Orm being Patrick Wilson. So they were always the two co-leads of the movie.
That's gaslighting!
Yeah.
That's gaslighting, mama!
So when he was calling Patrick Wilson the co-lead, that was in reference to the second movie. But my question is, for the first movie, weren't Jason Momoa and Amber Heard co-leads? Because the other person said that she was a supporting character. And what exactly is the difference between a supporting character and a leading character? And is it a guaranteed thing that the leading character will always be paid more than supporting characters? Because this person was trying to say that because Amber Heard is supposedly a supporting character, that is a justification for her being paid less. And that doesn't really make sense. And when it comes to the leading actors and leading actresses, I think that the way that they determine it most of the time is based on screen time. But there are some exceptions to the rule. Like, for example, Anthony Hopkins won the Academy Award for Best Actor in The Silence of the Lambs, even though his character was only on screen for about 15 minutes of the film. And sort of recently, there was a kind of controversy with the Danish Girl because Eddie Redmayne was nominated for the Best Actor category for his role. But then his co-lead in the film, Alicia, was nominated for supporting actress, and people had a big issue with that because she's his co-lead, and she was in like over an hour of the film, so it didn't really make a lot of sense. And apparently, the supporting actress and actor category doesn't mean much. They just put her in that category so that she would definitely win or something. But it doesn't really mean much when you look into it, so I don't know why he was like talking about it that much. Like, why does it? And does it mean that Eddie Redmayne was paid more than Alicia Vikander, and was that used as an excuse to pay her less as well? I don't know. And before I mentioned with the old Superman movies with Christopher Reeve, because he was like a new actor on the scene, he only earned $250,000 for both Superman and Superman 2, but his co-stars Brando and Hackman earned millions. So yeah, it doesn't really make sense like saying that it's a leading character, so they'll definitely be paid more, because that's not exactly how it works. And earlier on, when I mentioned this topic and said that I think that these people were kind of shameless to say that Amber Heard and Jason Momoa were not paid equally, someone said that it makes sense that Amber Heard is paid less because she's just a romantic interest. And when I thought about that, I was like, for the movie Aquaman, first of all, I don't really see Mira as just a romantic interest of him, because there wasn't a ton of romance in the movie, and they bring up the whole chemistry thing later on, which I'll get into. But when I think about the whole romantic interest thing, that's not, again, it's not a justification to pay her less, because if you think of a movie like Twilight, where Bella Swan is clearly the lead, like Kristen Stewart is definitely the lead character, but just because Edward's like a supporting character, it's not a justification to pay him less. And then him and Kristen Stewart were paid like exactly the same throughout all those movies, including New Moon, where he's not in it as much. And even with this the Aquaman 2 movie, where apparently she's only going to be in 20 minutes, it's still not, you can still pay her the same. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't like still pay her the same, even if she's only in 20 minutes. What's the excuse to like not pay her the same?
He played Aquaman, not a supporting character like Mira.
And a lot of times she kind of helps out Aquaman, right?
She saves
She's.
me.
I didn't want to give
many
anything
times.
away, but
Many times.
she's the driving force in a lot of the scenes with him. So is that
Should
something
switch this out where she's in front of.
He played Aquaman, not a supporting character like Mira.
She figures out really quick what needs to be done, and she takes action. And she's the one who, brings Aquaman out of Arthur.
It's just not comparable.
All right, Rudy, plans off. King Louis over here canceled Thanksgiving. Sorry, America.
In your experience in the industry, what factors influence the negotiation of the terms of a film agreement with an actor?
Well, I mean, first it depends on the film. If the film is $1 million movie and everybody's deferring their salaries, that's one thing. If it's a superhero movie, that's another. But for deal makers and negotiators, the best predictor of what the deal should be is past earnings.
Why?
Precedent, comps. You also look at the budget of the movie, what it can bear.
Lies.
I just find it interesting that he's saying that they look at what the budget can bear and they're not like prioritizing gender equality or like looking into like the Equal Pay Act or anything. Like, and what's the benefit of like basing it on past earnings? Because that's the thing that really doesn't make sense to me. And when it comes to Jason Momoa, how did he end up earning what he ended up earning? Because looking at the Conan film, that's an example of how his star power wasn't enough to help that movie break even. So how would he then deserve a pay rate that is like 3 times or 4 times as much as what Amber Heard made?
We're kind of like the same except for different genders.
But see, if he thinks that they really are kind of like the same, why did he not do more behind the scenes to make sure that they got paid kind of like the same? Because that is something that people can do. You can like negotiate your contracts together or something. And other actors have done that recently. So if like you can hear that he talks all this talk in front of like when they do these interviews and says that Mira is such an important character, but then he's not like taking enough action to make that true, because apparently he was someone who fought for Amber Heard to not be fired. But I just feel like it would be much easier to do that if she was like already being paid as much as him. Like they wouldn't see her as disposable if she got equal pay.
Because if Jason Momoa's comp is $10 million, but the budget's $10 million, obviously he has another price for that movie. But the best predictor of future earnings is past earnings.
But why? Seriously, why do you do it like that? It is so stupid. Because it is true that they do base it on past earnings, but with certain examples, it really comes across as so silly. Like with the Superman movie, you would think that Superman should get paid the most, but it turns out that Superman got paid $250,000, and then some of the people starring with him made like 10 times as much. It is so ridiculous. I don't know why they do it like that based on past earnings. What's the point of doing it like that?
Because if Jason Momoa's comp is $10 million, but the budget's $10 million, obviously he has another price for that movie.
I'm just going to talk through a few examples of where I find it really ridiculous that they base it on past earnings. Like, for example, Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense, he was paid $14 million, and his co-star in the film, the 10-year-old Haley Joel Osment, was paid $150,000 for that movie. Even though I'm pretty sure that he's supposed to be the lead actor in that movie, kind of technically. And then the supporting actress was paid $1 million, Toni Collette. So, and the son and the mother were the ones that were nominated for a lot of the awards in that film. And on top of this, Bruce Willis actually got 17% of the back end for that movie, so he made 114 million based on doing the movie The Sixth Sense, which is more than what he made from the whole Die Hard franchise. And it's just sad, like the kid only got paid 150,000. And like because he's getting the back end money, like the percentage, why couldn't they have like evened out the salary, the beginning salary, and like just paid 7 million or something? And it is really sad because child actors and women have a really short lifespan in the industry. So the system kind of benefits like old men mainly because people only like child actors when they're tiny and cute and they don't get much work when they grow up. And then for women, they are also only liked for a short time span, like when they're in their 20s, 30s kind of. And then that's their time to make money, and then they probably won't have a career when they're 50 or 60. So I just don't like this system because there wasn't any like definitive proof to say that the reason why that movie was successful was because of Bruce Willis's involvement. And he did a movie after this one with the same director, called Unbreakable, and it didn't do anywhere near as well as the Sixth Sense movie, and it could be because it's missing the child, or I don't know what it was, but that movie didn't do as well. So I don't get why. It just feels like you give these older men $20 million extra for no reason, no justifiable reason, and it's not really deserved, not in my eyes. Next movie I wanted to talk about is Basic Instinct, where the main actress was paid $500,000, which is pretty low compared to the film's budget. And Michael Douglas wanted to have another A-list actor starring in the movie because he was worried about taking the risk on his own, which sounds really dumb because he was paid $14 million, so he's not really taking a risk. And he ended up making 28 times as much as what Sharon Stone made, even though the movie had a $49 million budget. And you think about that guy saying, oh, we do what the budget can bear. And what did Michael Douglas think was going to happen if they got another A-list actress? Would they then be able to find the money in the budget? Like, it's so stupid. And whenever you can pay someone $500,000, if you can make them that much less, you would always do it. And it kind of reminds me of the kind of controversy with the Transformers films, where Megan Fox was fired for saying a joke about the director. A strong reason for the Transformers films being successful was because Megan Fox was in it. I heard a lot of people say that they would watch that movie specifically for Megan Fox. However, behind the scenes, for the first film, she was paid $100,000, and Shia LaBeouf was paid 7.5 times as much as her in that first film. And then for the second film, it was up to $800,000 for Megan Fox, and Shia was paid $5 million. And when you keep in mind that these Transformers movies made upwards of $700 million in the box office, and that people would specifically say that they go to see these movies for Megan Fox, that it was normal to pay Shia LaBeouf 6 or 7 times as much as her. And the minute Megan Fox sort of steps out of line, the directors or whatever decide to do a power move and fire her and put her in her place and say that she's not, they can get any other attractive woman to replace her, and that's what they ended up doing for the rest of the franchise. And after she was fired, Shia LaBeouf slammed the movie's director for treating the actress like a sex object and then firing her for complaining to the press. And then her replacement, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, who has no acting experience, stepped in her place, and because she's friendly with the director. Anyway, she ended up back then taking to Michael Bay's defense and said that that is what she's being paid to do. And I tried to look up her salary for the third movie of Transformers, and I think it might have been around the 1 million mark. And Shia LaBeouf was paid $15 million for the movie, so that is he's being paid 15 times as much as this girl. And for this girl, this is her first movie ever, and she's getting paid $1 million, which is more than what Megan Fox was ever paid for one of the films. So yeah, when it is her first movie and she's getting paid that much, you can see why she maybe doesn't see it as a problem that she's a sex object.
Oh, pick me. Shut the fuck up, Cha-Cha.
But for Megan Fox, who was paid way less, then maybe you could see what the issue is. And there will always be girls like this willing to take that spot, and they don't have any perspective of how the industry works, and they just know that this is the system, that you have to work from the bottom and go to the top, and there's nothing you can really do about it. It's just how it works. And I find it funny, like, when people are doing the petitions about replacing Amber Heard's character Mira with, like, Blake Lively and Emilia Clarke, I just don't know if they would find someone like that, because the way people talk about the character of Mira is like, you just find any attractive woman, put a red wig on them, and that's all you need. So why would they go for these big actresses when they could get a 19-year-old girl who has no acting experience and just who doesn't know any better, and then pay her a fraction, like a really tiny fraction of what Jason Momoa gets paid, and then just go with that? I don't see what would stop them from doing that. And there's a part of me that is kind of interested to see what it would look like if one of those big actresses replaced Amber Heard's character, and they had to do interviews afterwards and try to explain the wage gap, and even if they train for the fight scenes and they're hanging on the thingy for 17 hours a day in the really uncomfortable outfit, and then say that they totally understand why Jason Momoa is being paid 6 times as much as what they get paid. I think that would be really funny and interesting to see. It'd be even funnier and more interesting to see a no-name brand new actress in her early 20s who doesn't have a lot of experience going up there and explaining to you why it also totally makes sense why Jason Momoa gets paid 15 or 20 times as much as what she gets paid, even though, like I said, she would also be training for fight scenes, hanging on the thingy for 17 hours a day in the really, really uncomfortable outfit. I would love to see someone do that and explain to me why they think it makes sense. Next, I just wanted to talk about a movie called Drive Angry, starring Nick Cage and Amber Heard. If you look at the poster, you can see that she's featured heavily, and when you watch the movie, she seems to be a co-lead in that movie. Nick Cage was paid $6 million for that movie. I'm not sure what Amber Heard's pay was, but I would think that's a lot less. The movie's whole budget was $40 million, and it didn't break even though Nick Cage is in it. Anyway, I just wanted to bring this up because I guess that guy's argument is that they pay people more based on past earnings, and this is an example of a big actor, Nick Cage, who usually does movies for $20 million, that's his thing, but he did this movie for a reduced rate, $6 million. And even though he is getting this reduced rate, they were still not able to prioritize within the budget equal pay between the two co-leads of the movie, because of this whole Nick Cage thing, even though the movie is kind of selling itself, using Amber Heard, using the younger, attractive woman to sell the movie. And it's kind of similar to how the Transformers movies are successful based on the use of Megan Fox's body and cars is the recipe for success for Transformers. And then they tell you these nonsense things about the reason that the movie is successful is because Bruce Willis is in it or Nick Cage is in it, when that's just a filthy lie. That's not the reason why movies like this would be successful. But somehow you can still use it as an excuse to pay women less for doing the same kind of job. And it's total bullshit that favors old men making the most money, and you give them all these extra millions based on the use of people who are younger, like children or women, and say that the movie's success was because so-and-so's big name was in it, and that's like not the case. And I just got really annoyed at that guy for trying to pretend like the Hollywood system, the industry makes sense, and the way they pay people makes sense, when it's so nonsensical when you look into some of the ways they've paid people in the past. Like, it makes zero sense, and I'm sick and tired of him acting like things were okay, that things are okay the way they function right now, because it makes literally no sense to me.
Oh, yes! I win again, suck it!
He played Aquaman, not a supporting character like Mira. It's just not comparable. And you can say the words.
Jenga!
But I saw nothing from Miss Arnold to back it up, something to build on, which, if she was a negotiator in the trench, the studio negotiator would say, okay, so show us, where's the comps? Let's talk numbers, because ultimately that's where we have to get to, not just because you say it so. We just don't believe you. You've got to show us.
I don't want to get involved in another one of these.
You know something, mister? One of these days, I'm going to have to turn you inside out. Oh, what a beautiful sight that will be. But until that day, I'll be right here, making your life a living hell. Watching you, watching everything you do, whether it's giving Larry Bud Millman a star on the Walk of Hollywood or whatever the hell that was, I'll be watching you. I see you. I see you, Dave.
I mean, I just don't think it really needs to be that complicated. I just don't understand why there would be so much pushback against paying Amber Heard the same as Jason Momoa, especially for that first film where they were like promoting it on this gender equality angle, and they had them fighting the fights together and like saving each other. And look at the posters, it's the two of them standing next to each other, standing together. Why are they so against like equal pay for equal work? And then like to put it back to like the example I used with the Twilight movies, where Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson were paid the same. Is that wrong? Was Kristen Stewart underpaid? Should she have been paid 6 or 7 times as much what he got paid? Like, which way is the right way to go about it? And I don't like the way that they keep changing the rules depending on this factor or that factor. Like, why is it so difficult to do equal pay for equal work in an example like this?
And I do know that if we're gonna make it for another 50 years on this planet, we gotta fucking change our shit now. And there's a lot of motherfuckers that don't want that shit to be changed because that's gonna dig up their crap. There's a lot of parents who done fucked up their kids through their whole fucking lives, and they're about 40, they're about 50, and they think it's cool. Fuck that shit. And I'm the last motherfucking person they thought would be climbing up their ass to tell them about it.
Was there any delay in Warner Brothers exercising the option to cast Miss Heard in Aquaman 2?
Yes, there was.
How long a delay was there?
I don't know, probably weeks.
What was the cause of the delay?
There were conversations about potentially recasting.
You rated really high with the audience.
Exclamation point! Exclamation point!
So please, just please, watch your mouth, ass bag.
Did Warner Brothers believe that those concerns were legitimate?
Well, who cares what you believe, Grandma? You're from Mars.
Yeah, I mean, I had no reason not to believe the director and the producer of the movie.
Well, now what? What's so funny?
You, man, everything you say, it's gold.
And you are testifying today as a representative of Warner, correct?
Yes, I am.
What, if any, creative concerns did Warner Brothers have about casting Amber Heard as Mira in Aquaman 2?
That's weird. My Nana usually sends me money for my birthday.
Times are tough.
She must not love you anymore.
It was the concerns that were brought up at the wrap of the first movie, production of the first movie, which is the issue of chemistry. Did the two have chemistry?
Hey, Graham, you gotta stop chewing so loud. You're just grossing me out, babe.
You know, I think editorially they were able to make that relationship work in the first movie, but there was a concern that it took a lot of effort to get there.
I fought worse monsters than you for years in Hollywood. I know how to win the hard way.
Okay, so we're really gonna go through this thing where we pretend that the issue is the chemistry and somehow blame Amber Heard and Amber Heard only for the lack of chemistry.
What specifically about the chemistry between Amber Heard and Jason Momoa?
Just the fact that they didn't really have a lot of chemistry together.
Watch your mouth. Watch that mouth, Nancy Reagan. You're getting fresh.
You know, the reality is it's not uncommon on movies for two leads to not have chemistry, and that it's sort of movie magic and editorial, the ability to sort of put performances together, and with the magic of, you know, a great score and how you put the pieces together, you can fabricate sort of that chemistry. And so I think in at the end of the day, I think if you watch the movie, they look like they had great chemistry.
No. So I'm not really sure what kind of chemistry they were hoping to achieve in the movie. It seems a bit disjointed at parts where, like, in the beginning, I didn't think that they were supposed to like each other, because when they first see each other, it's like they don't have any physical attraction to one another, because she comes out of the water and she's like, come with me, and da-da-da, and he's like, go away. And then she saves his dad, and still I don't believe that they were supposed to ever like each other. And then you find out that she is engaged to his brother, so I was like, oh, throughout the movie I didn't think that they were supposed to build up any romantic connection. And then they randomly kiss at the end-ish before they go to it's like a war thing, so she kisses him out of nowhere, and that confused me. And then Amber Heard did this interview where she was talking about the relationship, and I just don't really agree with what she had to say.
Arthur and her are completely different people, but through the course of their journey, they bring out the strengths in each other, and you kind of fall in love with them falling in love.
The music as a... No.
Alright, so if we go back to the beginning, when she first emerges, she comes out of the water and they see each other for the first time. He could not have been less interested in what she had to say. Like, I don't know, because I don't know the story. I don't know if he's supposed to be gay or something else. It just made it seem like she is not his type. He's not into her. And I don't really get the sense that she is attracted to him or anyone else. Like, she's just so interested in the kingdom and her, like, the war, the people, you know. She's the princess, she's more interested in that kind of stuff. She's not really thinking about boys. So I didn't get the sense that they were actually building a love connection at all. And then when they have to work together to do their adventure, I'm sorry, I don't understand the plot very much, but they go off together, right? And I don't believe that she likes him as a result of it, but there are moments where it seems like he likes her, and I hate all the reasons that they put in there for why he likes her, like because she jumped out of a plane. It's like, oh, I don't know other women that jump out of planes, so that's something that sets her apart from everyone else. And the fact that she ate roses because she doesn't understand human food or something, and he thought that was cute, and it was just really stupid, and I hated it. And then she entertained a child with the water tricks. I hated that. I hate that stuff. I don't think anyone likes to see that, but whatever. It was just so cheesy and horrible, and I hate it so much. And they would always, a few moments in the film, they would make him look at her for the first time. Like, they stumble and they look at each other longingly, as if that's the first time that they've noticed that the other one is good looking, and that is also, the movie would be so much better if they edited out all those times where they look at each other in that way, because it feels so forced, and it doesn't make any sense that they would, for the first time, notice that the other one is attractive. I don't know. And then with Mira, I just didn't get the sense that she ever ended up liking him in that way. I think, and I'm okay with that because I think it works with what her character is, because she's kind of more interested in the kingdom and she'll do whatever it takes. Like, you know how his mother married a human man for love and stuff. I think Mira's like less interested in love, and she would just marry whoever she needs to marry in order for the kingdom to be the best. Like, she's not that interested in love, and she prioritizes the well-being of the kingdom. So she saw his brother as just the option of who to marry, and she's willing to do the arranged marriage like you do when you're a princess. But then, because he was the rightful person to be the king, she decided to make that happen, and that's the only thing that she has in mind to make it work. And then when they do kiss in the movie, it didn't seem like they were doing it because they liked each other or anything like that, because this is sort of in the middle of a war. It kind of reminded me of in the Twilight movies when Bella tells Jacob to kiss her on the mountain. She doesn't actually like him, not that much compared to Edward, but it's like, I think it's sort of like you do it to give the guy more energy for the battle in a weird, like, you know, in the weird movie logic way. Like, I think that's what the kiss is supposed to mean. I didn't take it to mean that she really likes him or he likes her. And if that is what they were trying to do, I don't think that they should have made them kiss in the first movie, because they haven't built up to it enough. Because, like, if you think of other good romantic couples in movies, in like long movie franchises like this, like with High School Musical, Troy and Gabriella don't kiss until the end of the second movie. So if they wanted to make it more of a love type thing, I think they should have paced themselves, because this kind of came across as like it was happening too soon. And just in general, I think that both Mira and Arthur are incredibly bland characters, and the movie was very cheesy, and I think it feels like they made like really safe choices, and it wasn't that, it all seems like too cookie cutter and predictable. I didn't like that aspect of it, but it did look really good, so I think that's the main thing that saves it. And when people say that they are willing to boycott a movie called Aquaman based on Amber Heard's involvement, like, it can be very easy to just put the blame on her and say it's all her fault. But there are so many problems, I think, in the Aquaman movie that go, like, chemistry was the least of my concerns. Like, the movie was not very funny. It was very cheesy and predictable. The two main characters are, like I said, really bland, boring, predictable. There's nothing really to hang on to either one of them. But there's a lot of room for improvement in the second one. And since it's the first movie of the franchise, like, because we don't know the characters well enough, there could be a lot you could do to fix them and give them both a bit more oomph moving forward.
I feel really lucky that I worked with filmmakers that wanted to protect her integrity, her strength, and didn't want to take from that to justify or to feed into, you know, some formula we've already seen a million times.
No.
She talking about? I'm just kidding. No, of course. No, it's true. It's true.
Was it true?
Yeah.
Okay, so like I've said before, I don't like either one of their characters, but there are moments in the first movie where I felt like Mira's character could be kind of interesting if they went a certain route with it, and they made it so that she didn't actually like any of those guys in a romantic way. She was just more focused on the kingdom. And there are moments where they would show you that love and romance were not the first thing on Mira's mind. Like when his brother gifted her a family heirloom that had a tracking device in it, and they find out that it has this tracking device in it, and immediately when she finds out, she instantly breaks it and doesn't think twice about it, and that shocks Arthur, and stuff like that is really interesting. And then when I re-examine when she kisses him at the end, because throughout the movie, when he's kind of like longingly looking at her, sometimes it's like, does she notice that he's like starting to grow feelings for her, or is she completely oblivious because she's just more focused on whatever it takes to save the kingdom and stuff? And then later on, when she ends up being the one to kiss him, I was thinking, what are her motivations? Because I didn't believe that she ever liked him. I didn't think that she was that interested in him, and maybe it was just like for curiosity's sake, in case one of them dies, just to see how it was, because she was semi-curious about it. Or maybe it was that, like in a movie way, like to give him more energy so that he would be motivated to win the fight. Maybe that's why she did it, and it was a tactical thing on her side. And this is kind of why I was surprised that they would bring up this chemistry thing, because I didn't think that it was supposed to be a love type kiss. Something about it just feels off in the way that she did it. I didn't think that was the intention behind it at all. So I just never saw it to be like the issue is the lack of chemistry. I just thought that they were never meant to really, really like each other in that way, and that makes it make more sense to me when I see it. And I think it would be better if they did present their relationship to be primarily a friendship thing, and that they marry based on their royal responsibility type stuff, and that they grow into love like in a slower pace, because that seems more the right way to go about like arranged kind of royal type predetermined marriages, that they wouldn't be all over each other so quickly. I think that would make the most sense.
You need to be cold to be queen. Anne Boleyn thought only with her heart, and she got her head chopped off. So, her daughter Elizabeth made a vow never to marry a man. She married her country. Forget boys. Keep your eye on the prize. You can't make people love you, but you can make them fear you, for what it's worth. You're my queen. I choose you.
And the second movie is apparently going to be this buddy cop thing with Jason Momoa's character and his brother. So hopefully that will mean that they'll try to make it funnier and more entertaining. I'm not sure though. I don't know if I have high hopes for that. I don't know what Mira's character is going to be doing. Apparently that's something in a hospital. So hopefully they explain it well. Even if she's in 20 minutes of the movie, you can still pay her the same amount as Jason Momoa. There's no reason not to. It's kind of like I've explained, the New Moon franchise, where Edward is not in the second movie as much, but him and Kristen Stewart were still paid the exact same amount. So yeah, there's no reason not to.
Now, you've used the term fabricated a number of times. What did you do to fabricate the chemistry between Amber Heard and Jason Momoa?
Well, those are just, it's editorial. A good editor and a good filmmaker can pick the right takes, can pick the right moments, and put scenes together. Again, score is a big, the music in a scene makes a big difference. It can make a happy scene feel sadder or a sad scene feel happier. And so it was sort of it's just the magic of post-production, editing, sound design, music, etc.
No, it's just my boss, blah, 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 blah.
What do you mean by fabricating, though? I mean, were they literally falsifying, or were they just picking the best music? Let me finish my question. Were they picking the best music and picking the best looks because that's their job and that's what you do on every scene?
That is what we do in post-production. That's what filmmakers do. Any production, you're doing that. You're putting performances together. Sometimes it's easier than others. This one was more difficult because of the lack of chemistry between the two.
Jason and Amber's relationship is awesome. They don't hold back.
We get along like a house on fire, so we have a ball. We have very much a lot in common. We share each other's pain. We're supportive of that. We laugh a lot. She reads a lot. I play a lot of guitar on set. We're both working on our crafts. Whoa!
Got it?
Theater!
James Wan and the editor were able to get it to a place where the end result actually works, and it's great.
No, clearly it's not great and it doesn't work. If people are talking about how they are willing to boycott the second movie, that means that there's something that went wrong. You fucked up somewhere down the line. Just take responsibility. Quit displacing the blame of the chemistry to Amber Heard only. You don't blame Jason Momoa for the lack of chemistry for some reason. For some bizarre reason, he's not getting the blame for that. And I think the main issue, like I've said, there are a lot of issues, I think, but it's mainly due to writing. They weren't really written to have good chemistry. So it's not really any of the actors' fault for the apparent lack of chemistry.
And in fact, that's the job of every filmmaker, right? Is to put all the combinations together to make the most successful production.
Absolutely.
And about the clip that I showed where Jason and Amber were behind the scenes being friendly with each other, I don't know if that is real, if that's their true relationship, or if they just do it for show. I don't know if like behind the scenes they secretly hate each other's guts. And frankly, it's none of my business. At the end of the day, it's showbiz, not friend biz. They did kind of work in the film. I think I didn't have any issue with the acting. I think they both did a perfectly adequate job with the material that they were given. I wouldn't blame either one of them. I think the issue is mainly at the fault of the writing. Anyway, when it comes to this whole boycott Aquaman 2 stuff, I've just been really bothered about how Jason Momoa doesn't get the blame for some of this stuff when it should really fall on him as well. If it is his movie, the Aquaman movie, if that is about him, why does he not suffer any consequences? Why does his pay get increased while hers doesn't as much? How do we explain these things? And how do people justify Jason Momoa's salary being $15 million or whatever when there is this talk happening? How is he someone who has earned it and she isn't? If what people say in the end is that they're not going to see a whole movie called Aquaman 2, how has Jason Momoa earned his salary?
My opinion, as someone who's made deals as a deal maker for almost 50 years, is that she calls herself an expert, but she's not. She doesn't have the background, she doesn't have the day-to-day knowledge, and her testimony that I heard did not back up her bottom line. If you want to get those figures, you have to show why they're deserved. And again, she was constructing a Jenga.
Oh! Jenga!
Without the bottom pieces. It does not hold up under scrutiny by someone who makes deals.
I'm sorry. I know you're speaking. I see your lips moving, but I can't understand what you're saying because I don't speak, little bitch.
I just don't know why this guy is making it so much more complicated than it needs to be, and this whole thing of like that certain people deserve what they make, and it's totally nonsensical. Certain people do not deserve the amount of money that they've been making. And with Jason Momoa and Amber Heard, I wouldn't care like if they decided that they should both get $2 million based on all this controversy, but the fact that only one side is affected. If there's people saying that they're willing to boycott a movie called Aquaman based on her involvement, that should mean that Jason Momoa does not deserve the amount that he made. The bottom line is how many people would go to see Aquaman in cinemas when it comes out. So if they're saying that they're not going to see Aquaman, even if Amber's in 20 minutes of it or whatever, that is something that affects everyone. And it's unfair for only one side to be affected by this. And then if the movie does end up being successful because people are just lying by saying that they're boycotting, they're just going to all attribute the success to Jason Momoa, which is what they said about the first film, even though in that movie Amber Heard was the co-lead. And let us not forget,
You rated really high with the audience! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark.
When she just kept bobbing and bobbing and bobbing and bobbing and bobbing, cause she ain't nothing but a stupid motherfucking bobble wobblehead.
Exclamation mark, exclamation mark.
Anyway, I just wanted to discuss both of these guys and the things that they said, the confusing metaphors and the big words that they've introduced me to, and how I really didn't appreciate the way they kept kind of talking about the business, the industry, as if their system is so amazing and there's no imperfections at all, and there's nothing that needs to be questioned about some of these decisions. But for this one guy in particular, I really didn't like the way he was making equal pay for equal work kind of thing seem like it's such a far off concept, and Amber Heard must be like narcissistic or think too highly of herself to be even asking for that, to even think that she's comparable to Jason Momoa, even though Jason Momoa does say that he is comparable to Amber Heard.
We're kind of like the same except for different genders.
But anyway, I just didn't like the way that he made it seem like it's such a far off, keep dreaming. It's so ridiculous that you would even ask for equal pay as Jason Momoa. That's too much. That's too ridiculous and so silly. I found that to be extremely distasteful when he was kind of saying that sort of thing.
It all sounds great, but it's not going to happen. I'm sorry.
Wow. Wow, David. You still playing these games, man?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, because I see what you're doing.
What? What am I
Big
doing?
Power play.
Yeah.
All right? But I see right through it.
Yeah.
But let me tell you this.
Okay.
If you disrespect me, I will stick you like a pig. Fat boy.
Yeah. All right.
I feel very disrespected by this whole thing. Like, why does it even need to be said? Why does it have to be a sort of fight still? Why isn't this stuff just automatically the case to begin with? Like, especially with a movie like Aquaman, where they were presented as kind of equal figures fighting the fights together. Why was that not the initial offer on the table? And she really got painted to be a villain, and like she's so narcissistic and so greedy for simply asking for what should be a basic human right in a sense. Like, especially for the Aquaman movie, why is it so difficult to give her like equal pay as Jason Momoa? Why does it have to be such a big ask? What are we really? Is it really her like reaching for the stars? Is it? She's not like asking for the blood of your firstborn or anything like that. It's a very normal request. Why are so many people so against it?
I tried being nice. I tried being cool about it. I tried like being friends and offering forgiveness and love and all that kind of shit. All I got was, you know how much we love you, but let's keep the screws on and keep you down like we always have. Yeah, well, guess what? I changed my point of view. For me now, it's kind of like live and let die, motherfucker.
And that was kind of like the more surprising things in the trial, was the way a lot of the audience kind of ignored the spineless excuses from some of these guys to provide a future out if the Amber Heard situation gets too bad. They could say, oh, well, the chemistry, and that's your way to like choose someone else, perhaps. And for the people who don't recognize what they're doing there, or think that they have a point, or that Amber Heard is narcissistic and she thinks too highly of herself simply because she's asking for what she deserves, like, what is your problem exactly? Why are you so against this idea of equal pay between Jason Momoa and Amber Heard? And do you really believe that Jason Momoa deserves his salary, even though so many people are saying that they are willing to boycott the Aquaman movie? And for the Me Too Time's Up people, how come there's been no comment about this one particular aspect of the trial that is a really important aspect about her career? Why was no one saying anything about that?
You are afraid to be alive. You are afraid to live. You're a hypocrite. You're a conformist. You're a liar. I opened up to you and you judged me. You're an asshole. You're an asshole.
Let's focus on that word, hypocrisy. Here's an example. How girls are held to an impossible sexual standard. How a girl can be called a slut, while a guy is applauded for his conquests. And when she wants to seem strong through the name-calling, she's a bitch.
Don't be afraid to be called a bitch. It's what they call you when they're threatened by you or scared of you.
And it's not just the guys who are saying this. Ladies.
Mr. Depp mentions Aquaman, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Mr. Depp got you that role in Aquaman, didn't he?
One more word out of you, Lisa, and I will backhand you myself.
Excuse me?
Mr. Depp got you that role in Aquaman, didn't he?
You should be thankful that this table is too long for me to reach across and strangle you, bitch!
So with this question, Camille is clearly undermining Amber Heard's work-related achievements and saying that it was due to her association with another man. I think the purpose of it was to get her riled up, to sort of provoke some kind of reaction. But it was interesting to see how the public reacted to it. And this is the thing that made her really popular in the online space. And it made me curious to see, does Camille Vasquez enjoy it when a similar kind of accusation is thrown to her?
With all of the fame also comes all the pettiness and cattiness, and some could say haterade, I call it, because there were a lot of social media rumors that you and Johnny Depp were romantically involved.
Right.
Why do you think those rumors started, and what did you think when you heard them?
It was disappointing to hear them.
I mean, I have to laugh.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe that she doesn't like that people are saying that she's having an inappropriate relationship with one of her clients. Like, that's so... Oh my goodness, she doesn't like it.
I think they started because people like love stories. They like to make things up, right?
Yes, we do know that people love to make stuff up. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that that was what her whole legal strategy was based on. And I find it funny that the woman interviewing her said that these accusations are coming from, like, the haterade, and Camille knows that that's not the case because she's talking about it in such a nice way. She knows that the people that spread this stuff are her fans. It's coming from the people that really like her. They're the ones that spread that kind of crap. And it's because the trial was misogynistic to everyone, including Camille Vasquez. It was misogynistic to her as well. It's just that she managed to benefit from it still somehow. For now, at least.
You just can't accept that I won. If winning means staking your reputation on some stupid and meaningless event that reinforces every negative stereotype about the Greek system, then yes, I guess you won.
Because what they did in that trial is make Camille get up there and ask all the stupid questions that wouldn't really look right if a man were to ask it in this day and age. They made her do all of that, and then they've rewarded her by being promoted as partner for that law firm, despite having these rumors of her dating one of her clients. That's not something that affected her. And she's not being rewarded based on her legal strategy or that she did something super clever. No, not at all. That's not the thing that people focus on when they discuss Camille Vasquez.
Oh! Do you know what everyone says about you?
They say that it's really great to have Camille Vasquez in that courtroom because her hotness can help offset the hotness of Amber Heard. Yeah, that's literally what they say. Like, out loud, with zero self-awareness. And it's her fans, it's the people who love her that say this stuff.
You should be proud.
Camille Vasquez's phone is ringing off the hook from men who are reaching out who have behaved badly or accused of behaving badly with women and in business. She said their names that we all know. She would not share them. I tried. She would not say who that is. But she said, I don't want to be known as that guy, you know, that if you're in trouble, you know, Camille can help you in the case.
I don't know why people are pretending like she's such an amazing lawyer when this whole thing is about whose side she was on, because if she were on Amber Heard's side, people would think that she was a really bad lawyer, that she was ugly. They wouldn't say any of this nice stuff about her. This is totally about how the glorified children's entertainer has built up all this goodwill, and that's the reason why it turned out in his favor. It had nothing to do with Camille Vasquez. I don't see why she's being rewarded so much. She did not do anything new compared to how people typically treat victims of abuse. That's the way that they're always questioned. It's always been like that. And because she was the one who asked Amber Heard the offensive question, the same thing could be thrown in her face. Like if she makes a mistake and she loses a case, they could easily say that the reason why she got the job was because she slept with Johnny Depp or something like that. That's always something that people can say to her in the future.
But it's important to call out such hypocrisy. Because we're not actually gods and goddesses. We're humans who make mistakes. Hopefully we learn from them and move on, pulling ourselves back up.
There were a lot of mistakes made in that trial, but I don't want us to lose sight of this one, because I think that this is the most important one, because it talks about the way we view women in our society and the way that so many people have been justifying this wage gap and making so many ridiculous excuses to say that this type of thing does make sense, and that Amber Heard, she must be a narcissist if she's asking for more, and that she should just be happy for what she was given. She should be ecstatic over the crumb, even though she knows that her co-star is making triple or quadruple what she made. She should just be fine with that.
We need to change the way we talk about women on a social level, on a political level. We need to not wait for 15, 20 women to come forward before we stop asking what's your motive. We really need to realize that if justice and equality is denied to us, one of us, it's denied to everyone.
And we should talk about how when the movie is successful, she does not get the credit that she deserves for it. People saying that she's just lucky to be on the ride, and how dare she be asking for so much, even though what she's asking for shouldn't be extraordinary. It should be what's the initial offer in the first place.
If I really think about all those times I didn't fight for what would have been closer to equal pay, not even equal pay, because I was afraid to be called a bitch.
Well, just drop out of society then, you know? Join that cult. Get you 3 teenage wives, because fear is a downward spiral that knows no bottom.
Please,
What was
try
your
to answer
question?
my questions. Mr. Depp mentions Aquaman.
When she just kept bobbing and bobbing and bobbing and bobbing and bobbing, because she ain't nothing but a stupid motherfucking bobble wobblehead.
Mr. Depp mentions Aquaman, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Mr. Depp got you that role in Aquaman, didn't he?
Excuse me?
Mr. Depp got you that role in Aquaman, didn't he?
I can't imagine anybody else playing that role, but you almost hesitated in the beginning about taking it, but thankfully you changed your mind. Why'd you change your mind?
Because, you know, Zack Snyder, who cast Justice League, the first, where we introduced my character, he said, no, this is a different kind of character. She's a real, badass. Like, check her out. This is no damsel in distress. And then I read the comic book, and I was like, yes. Right?
And I took my kids to see it, my girls, and you're right, you are no damsel in distress. I am not messing with you.
So please, just please, watch your mouth, ass bag.
I personally can imagine all kinds of other people playing their roles. Like I said, both of their characters are extremely bland. I feel like you could put anyone else in and it wouldn't make that much of a difference to me. But end of the day, they chose Amber and they chose Jason, and Yes, I mean, I really do think that they both did a perfectly adequate job. I have no problem with what either of them did. It turned out good. But the way that people speak about Amber's character, you know, they just say that you can get any attractive woman, put a red wig on them, and that's pretty much it. And I think if the audience talks about a character like that, then you have messed something up. That's not the way people should be seeing it. You don't want people to think of it like that it's just an object. The woman character is just an object. You could get anyone to do it. That's not the way you want it to be. And I think this whole stuff about her ex-husband really, really, really wanting her to be fired has distracted a lot of people from what we really should be talking about. And they already responded to that ridiculous petition about firing Amber Heard, and which was driven by the smear campaign from her ex-husband. And basically they can't really fire her for a reason like that, because I don't think it would legally work out in their favor. She never did anything wrong in the job. She was well received when the movie initially came out, which is why I think they gave us these claims of a lack of chemistry between the two leads. And I think they maybe think that they're being really slick and that nobody's gonna notice them, but...
I see you! I see you! Okay.
And ultimately, the judgment still stands, and that he was found to have assaulted her, physically assaulted her at least 12 times. And that nothing's going to happen to that judgment. That will still sit there no matter what happens. So I think that they are also concerned about being on the right side of history, and in a few years' time it would look like a bad thing if they fired a victim of abuse based on that abusive husband's actions because he's a high-powered person in the industry. I don't think that would really be the best course of action for them. So I do think that they are thinking of it in a strategic way when they say that they're not going to fire her. And I don't think that that's the thing that we should be discussing, because when they brought up this wage disparity, it seemed like such a nonsensical thing, because I saw the posters and the way that they talk about it in interviews. Then I watched the movie, and based on the way people talk about it, they make it seem like Amber Heard's character is not that important, that she's not relevant, but she is all over that movie. She seems to be like an equal player to me in comparison to Jason Momoa. So for him to be paid that much more than her, I think we need more of an explanation as to how they arrived at that number for him and a different one for her. And I think it's important to point out the hypocrisy in the movie's message and how sometimes Hollywood promotes these kind of ideas, but when you find out behind the scenes that they don't have any interest in actually doing it, it really leaves a sour taste in my mouth. And I know that like a certain someone this year made like misogyny and sexism really popular again and made it like the new cool thing to do. I don't think that we need to go in that route. I don't think that it is cool to do this type of stuff.
Not according to a girlfriend of mine. See, my friend is the one who dictates who's cool. This friend has never cared what other people thought of her. And you know what? Everyone fell in love with her for it.
And she lived where? Fantasyland?
I don't think Fantasyland would have had her for any. See, she spent years with a vial of blood around her neck, and during the biggest night of her life, she made out with her own brother.
Great, okay, so she's a freak too. Why don't we rush her right after we get done pairing up with the Lambda 6?
No, we're not going to rush her, because she is Angelina Jolie. See, after Angelina ditched Billy Bob, she stopped letting guys define her. She got cool all on her own.
And it's not because she's with Brad Pitt.
The fact is, we can be like Angelina. We can be unique and cool and crazy and weird and generous and totally gorgeous too.
Ashley, now's not exactly the time for a Us Weekly recap.
I want to know, Why we're letting a bunch of guys define us. We'll choose what's awesome and who's cool, and we'll choose who's number one. We can have it all. Because we can be Angelina Jolie too.
There's a lot of flexibility with the actors' salaries, and you can explain a lot of things away. And with Amber Heard's case, because she said that she fought for the part of Mira because Johnny Depp was bad-mouthing her and trying to get her fired, and it makes you wonder if she settled for a reduced rate in order to get the job, or why exactly is it that her pay was that much lower. And sometimes you see that this is a typical thing with the other superhero movie people, where there will be a movie with someone like Batman or Iron Man or whoever, and they have a female counterpart who is paid in a similar way, maybe kind of higher than that. And usually they do use the excuse of the reason why one person is paid more is because the movie is Batman and or Aquaman or whatever, and because it's the man's film, that's why he gets paid like that. And then maybe if there's a movie centered around the woman, they'll be paid more. But I think the movies centered around the woman usually doesn't make as much money because people are less interested in that. So I think with the Aquaman movie, the thing that set it apart is because Mira doesn't have a superhero name, you just assume that there's never going to be a Mira movie. So that's why I thought the more reasonable thing to do would be to just pay her equally to Jason. And then that way you could just make the whole franchise about teamwork and the two of them. And because they were definitely promoting a gender equality kind of angle. And at the minute, Amber Heard is still facing some difficulties in like getting work, and I just don't think that it's a good thing that sometimes these studios can exploit her bad situation, her public bad situation of likability, not being likable enough to pay someone less. And in general, I think women are going to have an issue because likability is so fickle. I don't think it's possible for a woman to meet some of the deranged standards of likability, so you would just hope that there were some legal protections. I don't think it needs to be a thing that gets debated to death. I don't think it's too big of an ask. I think it's just like basic human rights, like basic protections that I'm asking for here. I don't think it needs to be that. It needs to be seen as that outrageous to be wanting that. This seems to be something that is clearly unfair, and it sets a standard, it sets an example that this type of thing is okay. And I think we should question, like, why do you believe that it's okay to pay like triple, quadruple? And when I think about the Twilight franchise, because I think that they did pay people in a way that did make sense. When it's a franchise that's based around a woman's thing, men are guaranteed equal pay, and it's not hard to make that happen. But then when it's the reverse for like these superhero films, which are kind of a male-centered thing, you don't get that same respect. It's like you're worth a quarter, you're worth a third, or something like that, and I don't think that that's right.
Because if it's unfair for one person, it's unfair for us all.